Welcome to the How to Find and Keep a Gay Man podcast. I'm Matt Bays, your host, with Matt Heinker, your co-host. And we're here to provide bitchy wisdom for the gay man looking for love. There are a lot of gay men out there looking for a meaningful love experience, and we are here to help. You can follow How to Find and Keep a Gay Man on Instagram and TikTok, where you'll find all sorts of bitchy wisdom about what it's going to take to find and keep a gay man. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
The roses really smell like poo, poo, poo. Do you remember that song?
Yeah, Outkast. Whatever happened to Outkast?
Was it Outkast? I thought it was Black Eyed Peas.
Well, Outkast has a song called Roses.
Anyway, I love that tank top with its
Well,
roses.
thank you. It's tank season. Hallelujah.
Yes.
How are
How's
you,
your-
darling?
I'm doing good. I'm doing so good. Plugging along.
I got a few sneak peeks of some of the looks that are about to come our way with the new video. Cannot wait.
Yes, a little drag video. It's coming. And this queen is 6'6.5" in the shoes you put me in.
Oh, like I told you, that's my fantasy to be 6'6". Enjoy that.
I'm practicing in those heels.
And your feet are already taking a beating, but it's worth it.
Yes, they are. Oh, yes. We don't complain. We learned that from Naomi Campbell on every talk she gives when they're like, but the shoes are too tight. She's like, I don't want to hear it. We don't bitch about shoes. You just suck it up and you walk that runway.
You were a professional, darling. Beauty is pain.
Yes. Also, beauty is where you find it. Thank you, Madonna. How's your week been?
Crazy. Every day's crazy with all these kids. I tell you what.
Last week you called them damn kids, and then you were like, wow, such a blessing.
These damn kids are on my nerves, and they're a blessing.
You said too many of them all at one time were acting a fool.
When that happens, you're really kind of out of luck. You just got to press through.
Yes, I know.
Blending this family has been an adventure and continues to be, but all things considered, we're doing pretty good.
Well, you've got a good person to work it out with.
Absolutely. That's key.
You found him. Now you got to keep him with all these chitlins running around.
Oh, Lord. I'm going to put my back into it. What are we talking to the children about this week, my man?
Last week sort of set us up with it, talking about keeping things spicy in our relationship. And so we're taking it a step further this week, and we are going to talk about the nuts and bolts and all that is included in intimacy. Yes. And I'm excited about this because there's so much good information out there on what intimacy is, right?
Yep.
And then also the natural barriers that gay men have to intimacy, and then how to create intimacy and maintain it in a relationship. But before we get into all of that, I want to address, and I don't do this often, Matt, but I want to address something that we talked about last week, because in keeping it spicy, we mentioned pornography, mainly viewing it together as an option in our sexual relationship with our partner, boyfriend, husband, using it not as a replacement, but potentially as something to add in, right?
Fantasy as fuel, as a supplement, not substitution.
Yes, great. I always feel the need to clarify on things when I feel like we've left something out. So I'm going to do that now, because something we did leave out that I think is actually very important in the conversation around porn is this. And here's what I think we have to remember about it, that if you do your research on it, the research does overwhelmingly show that for both marriages and dating relationships, regular, keyword there, regularly viewing pornography can set in motion all the things that lead to divorce or breakup, including a lack of trust and emotional intimacy, sexual dissatisfaction, which you also mentioned, and limited sexual activity that I think we also mentioned, and insecurity and just overall relational instability. And these are studies by Brigham Young, NPR, the National Institute of Health, mentalhealth.net, and even the Institute for Family Studies, who says that couples where both partners do not consume pornography have the highest levels of relationship stability, commitment, and relationship satisfaction.
Ooh, well, okay.
So there's that. I just wanted to be clear because I think it's important. Like, let's just go in knowing that. Nobody's saying no here. We're just saying, do your research. You can do your own to have this in mind. But I want to say one more thing because I'm about to go Debbie Downer. Are you ready?
Oh, you haven't already. Okay, give us some more.
Yes. Just as a reminder, those boys we're watching, I don't know if you know this or not, aren't doing so well in their personal lives.
Oh, well, of course.
Yeah. Okay, so the question is, what are we contributing to? I think that's a responsible question to ask ourselves. We have to remember and acknowledge, I think we really need to, that the porn industry is filled with sexual violence, coercion, drug addiction, STDs, and exploitation.
Yes.
Celebrate, confetti. I'm just here to help, and you're welcome. And then the last thing I'll say is if you've tried to stop doing porn and you can't, because porn addiction is actually a real thing, there is help. There are meetings for porn addiction, same as there are for alcohol and drug addiction. Recovery meetings have been a part of my addiction process for many years now. So if that's you and you're looking for help, Google that shit and go. The end.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for straightening us out, Daddy. That was good. That was helpful.
You're welcome. Well, it's good to have the information, right? Even if we don't want it or we're not going to take it, at least we go in informed.
Exactly.
Now let's talk intimacy.
Intimacy. Yes.
I'm really excited about this because immediately when people think about intimacy, they think sex.
Exactly.
I don't even know what you've got on the docket, but I'm imagining that we're going to go further than that.
Well, yeah. Well, there's 4 types of intimacy, turns out. Physical, which sexual falls under. Emotional, mental or intellectual, and spiritual. 4 kinds. The 4 pathways to intimacy with our partners.
Okay.
So how multidimensional is your intimate relationship with your partner? That's kind of one of the first things you ask. And even what is it? Mutual vulnerability, closeness without barriers, deep abiding trust between 2 people. Intimacy means you see into me, my most real, authentic, and vulnerable self. You know, first of all, as gay men, when we think about our even romantic relationships, I think when we're looking at the different types of intimacy that are available to us in really, you know, enriching the relationship that we have with our boy, how many of those buckets are we exploring with him, you know, to really connect and attach fully? Mm-hmm. Those are things to really kind of inventory. When I was looking at those, I think one of the reasons that my relationship with my husband is so rich is we really do go into each of those areas. But as I look at a lot of the relationships around me, friends of mine that struggle with dating in particular ways, I think that it doesn't go beyond the surface deep enough to get to these places.
I've noticed that. And have been a little bit surprised. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but I do notice in probably all relationships, but because I've been around some more gay couples, just maybe a lack of depth.
Exactly. Yeah.
It feels like cohabiting, living together, but not necessarily that 2 become one.
Connected. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And why is that? And as I've done research for this week, and I'm really curious to see where you went with this, Matt. But, you know, any couple, gay, straight, whatever, has natural barriers to building, growing, maintaining intimacy. That's normal. That's human psychology. But as gay men, we really have 2 layers of difficulty. So what I mean by that is the first one is because of the fact that we are gay men and have had unique experience, we have 1 layer to deal with before we get to the one that everybody else does. So Brene Brown says that women experience shame in a variety of areas, but men experience it primarily in 1 area. Don't show weakness or vulnerability because of the toxic masculinity that exists, you know, in our culture. Yeah. So gay men have had to hide for so long. The world said no to marriage for so long, and intimacy with a man was considered shameful. So we focused on the sex part because that's what we did have control over, and we got really good at that. And so we naturally, as a culture, as a, you know, our community, we developed this kind of focus on sex and sidestepping building intimacy in relationships. So the result is generational indoctrination of just a focus on sex. And we have discussed this in past podcasts. The older queens are handing things down to us culturally that maybe are not healthy because they were kind of survival things that they had to deal with.
100%.
So the majority of our community is emotionally unavailable and doesn't have the tools to unlock the door to intimacy, only sex, which is why we're seeing all these relationships around us that really do seem primarily surface. We lack those tools. So there's this developmental delay in really allowing yourself to be fully seen. You know, as I think of when I was dating quite a bit, I remember one guy in particular, we would hang out together and or get physical, and he'd be like, wow, like, you're a lot. You're like really here. You're like very like present and seeing me. And it feels like a lot. It was off-putting to him that I wanted to see him and know him.
Yeah.
And I was so confused by that. And this research really triggered that memory. He lacked the tools to go there because he'd not done the healing work that is needed to access that part of yourself and to be healthy enough to be able to share it with someone else. Isn't that crazy?
Matt, I remember a moment the first time that I was with Chris, and he had his eyes shut, and I took his face in my hands and I said, open your eyes. I want you to look at me. That's what that is for me. Sex is intimacy too. And that's why, I wasn't much of a hookup guy, because I did not want to connect with somebody sexually in a recreational way. Mm-hmm. Some people can do that, more power to them. But for me, that was not something I think I was good at, maybe not even capable of.
So when you and Chris mentioned that moment, what does he say was going on? Why did he close his eyes?
Again, I'm going to hold back some for us, for just the two of us, because some of that stuff is just for the two of us. But it was an intimate connection of looking into each other's eyes. It makes me think of that thing that Alicia told us, where she said, the eyes never age. It's important to look them in the eyes when you talk to them. Anyway, and then what you mentioned made me think of that Brene Brown, you already mentioned her, but that she believes that vulnerability is the key to unlocking intimacy, because it tells the person you're with that you trust them, right? Mm-hmm. And she defines vulnerability as emotional exposure and risk, and that is what unlocks intimacy.
Yeah. And you're not only saying that you trust them, you're saying that you are healthy enough to share yourself with them, to let them see you. That's a mutual thing. And when you've done your healing work, you can do that. And we see evidence of this focus on sex. We've talked many times about the catty energy around us, the widespread distrust gay men naturally have towards each other, because they're still, if you haven't done the healing work, you're still in self-protection mode. Your nervous system still doesn't believe the world around you is safe. You can trust anyone. And so the work that we have to do now is undo the generational indoctrination of focus on sex only, and help people understand that you have to do the healing work as a gay man before you're able to even access the tools necessary.
Yes. And then the question comes up with that, why? Why do we need to fix this whole sexual indoctrination kind of thing? And here's what the answer is. Because it's no longer working. And we see that all the time. We hear the commentary, we hear the stories, the comments of people who are like, I'm tired of that. It's not working for me. I feel lonely. I feel empty. So that's why we're talking about this. And some of what we're doing today will run out of steam on down the road, and it won't work. And people will need to shore that up and change it and evolve. And this is, I think at this point, sort of a process of evolution that we've talked about many times, is coming from our younger generation that are saying, I'm not interested in hookups. I'm not interested as much in living that way. I want something real. I want something lasting and something connected.
Exactly. And we have an expert that totally agrees with us. As I was doing research this week, I found this and I thought it was really interesting. And I've actually quoted this guy before. His name is Richard Issei, and he is the one that wrote the book Commitment and Healing: Gay Men and the Need for Romantic Love, that just came out recently. But he was the first openly gay member of the American Psychoanalytic Association, and he still is a clinical professor at Columbia University. But in his book, it says, in his new book, Commitment and Healing: Gay Men and the Need for Romantic Love, Issei describes how therapy can provide gay men with insight into the effects of childhood influences and their capacity to commit to a partner. In his book, Accessible to Non-Therapists, Issei shows how gay men can recover from childhood wounds and learn to sustain vibrant, fulfilling, committed, monogamous partnerships. He says, what we've always done is no longer working. He argues that gay couples who tolerate sexual adventures outside the partnership may do so out of an unconscious fear of closeness rather than a sense of liberation from traditional heterosexual strictures.
We are going to hit on some of that later. We'll get back to that.
So we can say that our voices are countercultural, but the research supports these ideas. And that's why we're talking about them.
Listen, I'm not carrying a banner trying to be like, look at us, we're a hero, we're countercultural. It's just, it's what we hear, it's what we've lived, it's what we've seen from our community that people are looking for more. And as we always maintain, if you're not looking for more, then this isn't for you. We're talking about what we were all born for, which is connection. Absolutely. We're wired for intimacy. And when that goes unmet, because there is a cost to it, we go looking for it in other ways. Matt, as we move into what are the natural barriers that gay men have to intimacy, one of the things that I think is fairly common is some people are like, yeah, I don't really want to have intimacy with another person because they've been burned or they've misunderstood what that actually looks like. And so what I want to point out is that intimacy is not about giving people the power to hurt us or being vulnerable and expecting them to fix us.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know some people are like, dude, I dated crazy. Not interested in going back there. This person was so vulnerable and so all of the shit out on the table. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Well, the answer in that situation is nothing. We fix ourselves. So there is a process of letting someone inside our mess, but we absolutely do not expect them to clean it up. And I believe that there are a lot of people that are like, I don't want to get into all that. It's too messy. There was sort of an imbalance of what a healthy view of intimacy looks like, and not this sort of codependent, I've bled all over you. Fiction.
Yeah, I think the healing work that we have to do, is necessary so you can come to the relationship you've mentioned in the past as a whole person by yourself. That's worth saying for sure.
Yeah.
But I started by saying we have two layers. So as gay men, we've got unique challenges to intimacy because of our cultural past and kind of things that have been just understood and handed down. But any relationship, committed long-term relationship, is going to also deal with just natural barriers to intimacy. And so, what are some of those things that we need to be aware of as we're navigating keeping our gay man? So betterhealth.gov says difficulties in creating intimacy, a list of a few key points. So first, communication issues. That is, a challenge for probably most couples, at varying degrees at different seasons in your relationship, but really making sure that you're able to communicate, hear, and understand each other so you can feel close to them. Because if you can't communicate, it's hard to be intimate. So that's a fairly obvious one, but one worth mentioning. Second is conflict. There's ongoing conflict in your relationship. It can be very difficult to develop intimacy. It's not easy to feel close to someone that you're arguing with, or that anger, hurt, lack of trust, etc., are affecting your relationship. If you are in a relationship where you have a significant amount of conflict, I think it's really important that you're in regular therapy. What would you say about that, Matt?
Oh, I think so. It doesn't make anybody bad. It doesn't mean you don't know how to do it. It's just, I may not have developed the tools yet. So if your relationship is causing problems, you don't know how to fight fair, or you have a lot of tension, as you mentioned, yes, go to therapy, get tools, learn how to communicate better, 100%.
And I love that you said, I think that was worth repeating. No one's bad. You just haven't developed the tools to navigate this yet. Look at it through that lens and remove the shame. I think that's really awesome. Practical issues in life stressors, financial worries, pressures at work, concerns about children. Ooh, I wonder what that's like. Or just being too busy to really connect with each other on a regular basis can affect intimacy. It says there are times in a couple's relationship when the needs of your relationship have to be put aside because there's more pressing issues to be dealt with. But it's really important to try to carve out time together as a couple, even if it's a 5-minute check-in in the morning to have a cup of tea.
What you just said is so wonderful because, again, it takes the shame out of it. You've not done anything wrong here.
Yeah.
These are the natural money, children, schedules, job,
Woo.
whatever. All of
Yeah.
these things are real and demand our attention. And there may be a time where something comes along, project, whatever it might be, that demands more time and attention and kind of takes that away from your relationship that you have to circle back to, reinvest in, and make sure you're keeping it in good space. Love that.
We have dear friends that just went through a season where his mother was very ill and they had to care for her. And, they had hardly any time for each other.
Yeah.
But getting up early to have a cup of tea and check in, even small moments that you carve out purposefully to look each other in the eye, preserve that greater feeling of intimacy over time. I think that's beautiful to think about.
Yeah.
The fourth one I thought was kind of interesting, unbalanced power dynamics. So,
okay. I love that. I love this. It's very practical.
Yeah.
What does it say?
Well, it says that particularly in relationships where maybe one is the clear far and above breadwinner, and there's a discrepancy to what they bring financially to the marriage or to the house, can create power dynamics. Maybe one of them is much more charismatic or gregarious socially person and the other is not. There's all different things in the relationship. If you are really opposites in certain areas, it can create power dynamics that you have to navigate and check in with each other and make sure that you're feeling supported. It's funny, Ty and I, to be very vulnerable myself, had a discussion about this week. I have built my career for many, many years. He, when he came out, had to completely start over with his career. So he's been in a really difficult process the last few years of rebuilding his career, his income, all those types of things. And so there are moments when he can feel, to quote him, he can feel like my little bitch. And I don't want him to feel that way. And so we talk about, how do you feel supported and seen and equal in our relationship? What are ways that I can support you feel like I see you that way, because I do? We bring different things to the relationship that both of us need. And let's check in with each other and make sure that we don't feel like our power dynamics are out of control or obtuse, because we want to feel like we come to this relationship as whole people on our own and both bringing meaning to it, contributing meaningful things to it. Does that make sense?
Yep. And so to that, Matt, I would say, number one, I have to know my worth and the value that I bring to the relationship. And number two, I need my husband to know that as well.
Bingo. Exactly.
That's finding the agreement. So it's not about something that I'm bringing monetarily. It's not just that. It's all kinds of shit that I'm bringing to the table. They're bringing too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I like that.
Number 5, past and current traumas.
Yes.
So, this really does tie in a little bit to the healing work that we have to do as gay men. We talked about in the first section, but if you had a really traumatic previous relationship, or you have had a traumatic childhood, or you had traumatic family situation, or dealt with deep loss, and it's really affecting you psychologically, these are the types of things that you can't allow to disrupt the intimacy that you have with your partner. How can you walk alongside each other through these things and get help? Those are important things to navigate as they come up.
Yeah.
And then last, it said health issues. You never know what life is going to bring. I mentioned my friends earlier, the health issues of close loved ones that they had responsibility to help care for.
Sure.
Those are things that can prevent you from really staying connected. So all of those just fall into the category of life, in my opinion, but really being intentional about regardless of what you're going through in your life.
It's good, Matt, to hear just the laundry list there of things that could be barriers to us having intimacy. And then you just said, it's basically, it's life, when life comes for you. And it does. So it's just a reminder to me of, here are some of the things that can come along and disrupt the intimacy that I have with my partner. And so tending to the garden, putting my back into it when I reach one of those places, or at least acknowledging, hey, we're in a time where we're struggling to connect more. What are some things that we can do to find that?
Yeah. It closes by saying it's important to be aware of the fact that everyone experiences barriers to intimacy. So we have to do the work to be able to identify them whenever they come up and work together to overcome them. That's your practice as a couple.
I have this thing from an article I read. It's from practicalintimacy.com that says most marriages or relationships will struggle to survive without emotional intimacy, and then says 11 signs that there's no emotional intimacy in your relationship.
Oh my, okay.
11. We'll go through them real quick, but
Please.
I thought they were great.
And so real quick, I think this would also apply to if you're in a gay relationship and it feels surface, or, we mentioned that maybe you haven't done your work to unlock the tools that allow yourself to be intimate with each other and vulnerable. Maybe these are also signs that that's what you're dealing with still, right?
Yes. So viewing it maybe through that lens.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's 11 signs that there's no emotional intimacy in your relationship. 1, you're distancing yourself. You feel lonely. You're less affectionate. You're having less sex. Ding, ding. You don't know what to say. Now, I thought this one was interesting because what builds intimacy is sharing. And when we stop sharing, intimacy goes down, right?
For sure.
Okay. Next, you've lost empathy, which basically means you've lost the ability to understand your partner.
Yeah.
You're arguing more about sex, parenting, money, the stuff you mentioned earlier, just trivial stuff like the right way to make a grilled cheese sandwich. When people are just arguing over nothing, you're like, why are you doing that?
Things are getting petty. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes. You communicate with barbed jokes is what they called it, which are thinly veiled attempts at innocent humor, unspoken complaints, or passive aggressive attempts to get a point across. Okay.
And that, I see that rampant around me. Standard operating procedure.
I joke a lot. And so I have to be careful of this one. The barbed jokes. Yeah.
Yep.
Next is you're walking on eggshells, trying not to be seen so you won't argue, disappoint to maintain your partner's good mood.
Ooh. Yikes.
I know. I was like, what? Let me just fly under the radar here so I ain't going to make him mad.
That's when you get a therapist and go to them together.
Yep. 2 more. 10, you don't support each other. You've lost that team feeling, that sort of it takes two thing that you once had. You stop championing the other in their dreams, their job, etc. Right? And then the last one they have is you question if you're in the right relationship. You fantasize about being in a relationship where your emotional needs are met.
Oh, you fantasize about being in a relationship in which your needs are met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your emotional needs are met. No big deal. Just little teensy shit.
Might want to break up if that's happening. Maybe that's not a better together. That's a time to break up situation.
Or open your mouth and let the truth fly out. Say it. Don't spray it. Say it. Right?
Okay. Well, how do we create and maintain intimacy in our relationship?
Sex, lots of sex. We have so much sex.
Researchers Blumstein and Schwartz report a healthy sex life and mutuality of sexual desire are cornerstones of relational success long-term. Studies resoundingly show that marital satisfaction is significantly and positively associated with sexual satisfaction, and there is a positive correlation between relationship satisfaction and sexual frequency. So it is true. I've mentioned this too. Alicia says when a couple comes to her, our therapist friend, and they say, we've lost interest in sex, she says, get it back. You're not going to be intimate without that foundational thing alive in your relationship.
Yeah. In some form or another. Figure that shit out, because there's some being like, I'm incapable of copulating at this point. Maybe they're at a certain age where they can't do it, or for whatever reason, they're not able to do it. It's not just figuring out how to get it done. Now, there is help out there. So find the resource and get some help, but also realizing that there are other ways to be sexually intimate besides getting an erection and casting your seed.
Exactly. It's funny that you mentioned that. I was shocked how much research is done on that. Maintaining sexual intimacy in a variety of ways. And a lot of the research, even on this study, said that gay couples have a huge advantage because they are more sexually adventurous in exploring what those things might be than heterosexual couples are.
Because we're whores.
Because we're whores.
Basically, we're whores. Now you put two whores together.
They go find a way to get it done. Exactly.
Yeah. Sexual intimacy, yes, please. We're all over it. Now, the big failed attempt, though, in creating intimacy, right, is the idea that sex will cure what ails you. You remember Alan Downs, the guy who wrote The Velvet Rage?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He says that gay men are prone to thinking intimacy is sex and sex is intimacy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the four legs of the table.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And wonderful. So there's this woman, I found an article by her named Shelby Sells at papermagazine.com, who, I don't know if she invented this word, but a word she uses is called sextamacy.
Sextamacy.
Yes.
That sounds
which
cute.
She defines as the effort to find emotional intimacy through sex.
Oh.
And she says that in such a sexually liberated time as we are in, that it's easy to confuse sexual connection with emotional intimacy. And she tells a story about a wonderful sexual relationship that she had. And she says, though we developed sexual intimacy, neither of our emotional needs were being met.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes on to say that sex can fulfill short-term needs, but being with someone for a bit, it kind of can wear off, right?
Well, yeah.
Yes. And then she says, but when it does, when it wears off and there's nothing left to offer outside of sex, we can sort of get into this dangerous pattern of repeating this process with multiple people over and over. Long story short, we need more.
Well, and that's why I think that if you find someone that your non-negotiables are there, they're a legit candidate to be your man, it really is important that you don't introduce sex too quickly, because you have to connect emotionally and see what really is there beyond that. And we are really bad at doing that.
And sex can muddy the waters.
It can.
I mean, I told you I'm an ENFP, and ENFPs are we're holding hands and we're naked. That's just the way it goes.
Or
and
like
that can get you in trouble.
Well, yeah, or you've had sex one time and you're in love. It means way more than it should. Exactly.
That's me. I feel that felt aggressive toward me. I just want you to know that.
But you have got to be really careful, because you think that you're in a place that you're not, because you have done that so quickly. So I really like just the idea that as we meet someone, we pursue the different areas of intimacy, even intellectual. Like there was a boy that I dated that my non-negotiables were mostly there, and we had really great physical chemistry. He was sweet as sugar, but the mental, intellectual intimacy was not there. Like he was just a pretty
dummy.
super sweet. I was trying to be nicer than that, but like our conversations just bored me. There wasn't a lot going on. He was the nicest guy and beautiful, but all of the different areas that you need, all four were not there, and I felt it. And what it complicated in me not dating him anymore was the fact that he was sweet and we had really good physical chemistry. So I thought the relationship was more than it really was.
Yeah.
Just watch out for that.
I'm taking a lipstick break.
Take a lipstick break. Grease your grin, honey.
Yeah. I'm gonna grease my grin.
What are the 3 C's of intimacy? A strong, healthy relationship is built on 3 C's: communication,
yes,
compromise, and commitment.
What are you laughing about? That's the mic drop.
Yeah.
Communication. So, everybody says that. We have to communicate.
Compromise. Ooh, we don't want to do that now. Keeping your gay man over time and maintaining intimacy requires compromise. You said last week you are not interested in mountain biking, but turns out your ass is mountain biking because Boo likes it. And that is a way for you to stay connected.
Although he's going mountain biking Sunday, and I told him already, I'm not going with you this time because I got this drag video to be in and I'm scared I'm going to break my leg.
Well,
and I've invested too much. He goes, no, I get it. I was like, so you can invite someone on this one, because I'm not trying to get injured.
But trust and believe that he's going to come home to you in your strappy show suit and fresh baked cookies.
Listen, my strappy show suit is put away in a very special drawer for another special occasion.
Yes. Oh my!
Yeah, I love that. So it's communication, compromise, and commitment.
Absolutely. BetterHealth.gov says they have 4 ways to create and maintain intimacy in a relationship long term. The first is to always celebrate the good things in your relationship. Tell your partner in words, actions, how much you love and appreciate them, and let them know what you value about them in your relationship together. Put it into words and don't assume that they already know. Everybody likes to be told they are loved and appreciated. I love that.
I'm just going to stop for a second and say, last night we are walking in the door and I turned around to Chris and I said, thank you for always looking for the best in me, because this boy can be a mess sometimes. I know that I am not perfect. I know that I have limitations. I know that I can be annoying. Listen, but that man always is telling me the good things that I do. That's where his focus is. And it's challenging to me to be like, I think that's a great place to be. So what you just said, I love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look for the good.
Look for the good and say it to them. I love that. Communication, honey. That's one of the 3 C's. Talk openly about your feelings and what it is that you need from the relationship, and be willing to listen to him in response. That seems really elementary as well. But how often are we really going there? This is what I need.
Yeah, it's not elementary, Matt, in that for people, we talked about people who had traumatic past relationships or traumatic childhoods. For some people like that, and I'm speaking for myself, to be able to say what we need feels weak, or it feels somewhere along the line we've been told that we're selfish. And it's hard to say what it is that we need, but we have to, because the alternative, it just tears away at the relationship. You stuff those feelings down inside and then you get resentful. Yeah.
It's important to tell them what you need. Another tool to develop. Number 3 was create opportunities for intimacy. Take time out to be together as a couple where you can focus on just each other and your relationship. And I love this because this is where I'm living right now. The harder it is to do this because of children, work, or other commitments in this season of life, the more important it is that you do it. So try to plan a regular evening, day, or weekend for the 2 of you just to be alone. I'd say that is what keeps our train on the tracks, saves our bacon. And we've got regular times when the children are not here, and we fiercely protect that time. Friday night, it's date night, and we carve out a time to be alone throughout the week, our hectic, busy weeks. And that really preserves our intimacy. And it's not just time to have sex. It's time to talk. It's time to cuddle. It's time to just share,
watch a movie, whatever.
Exactly.
Be together. Yeah, I really love this. And I've heard people say, and I get it, we don't have the money to get a babysitter for all that stuff. It's tough to get the money together, cobbled together, when you're viewing that as sort of like an extracurricular or something that's extra. It's not. Think of it as a need. Think of it as a budget line item. We're going to have a date night every single week.
And I would venture to suggest that most of our listeners do not have children or childcare to deal with, the majority of them. But there are other barriers that prevent you from doing it. Make sure you do, period. And
just because you crawl on the bed every night together doesn't mean it's happening.
Oh, no.
There's intention involved.
Number 4 says, accept that your relationship will have highs and lows. Continue to explore new ways of finding a deeper level of intimacy. These moments don't need to be grand gestures of love, big dramatic things, trips, gifts, or whatever, but taking time, even small moments together, is just as important as going on a fancy date together. So we've talked about that a little bit. Then the last one is be positive and grateful, your keyword, about what you have in your relationship. I am deeply grateful for my husband. It's surreal that I'm married to this wonderful man. And I want to be positive about it, even when things are hard, even when our schedules are crazy. The challenges that come with this life, blending 2 families and building careers and all that. We are so blessed to be together and need to be really aware of that every day.
Yeah. So that last one is gratitude, being grateful.
Be positive and grateful about what you have in your relationship.
Some people can't find a thank you anywhere. People make gratitude lists in the rooms of recovery. If somebody's bitching too much, somebody will tell you, go make a gratitude list and then make one every single day. But it's always where some people will just be like, this is stupid. What am I going to do? Write down every day that I'm thankful for this. I don't care how technical it needs to get. I'm grateful for this car.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the use of my hands.
Okay.
I'm grateful that I'm alive. I'm grateful Amazon delivered my drag dress yesterday. Find something to be grateful for. There are good things in our lives, and it's really important to tell ourselves what those things are, to remind ourselves that there's good.
Well, and specifically about your relationship.
Yeah.
You should not have to think too hard. I'm grateful this man, he brings me a cup of coffee and a smile in the morning. Whatever we're doing, we're having a good time. He works hard. I trust him. He's good to my kids. Whatever. The million ways that your partner shows up for you, don't take them for granted and be positive about all that you do have in that relationship. We talked about the barbed jokes earlier. One thing that makes us just cringe, we've got a few friends that are maybe not in great space relationally, no judgment there, but there's barbed jokes and they have clearly lost sight of what they saw in this person when they got together.
Mm-hmm.
And how beautiful the relationship was at one point, what it is that they actually have. You got to protect against that.
Yeah. Can't lose sight of that. And when you do, if you're having a moment, you're out there listening, you're thinking, bring it up and say, I want something else. I want it to be like it was, or this new level of where we used to be, where we loved each other and cared about each other. And
we're nice to each other.
Yeah. Get that love off the shelf and dust it off, shine it up.
You can get it back, honey. Shine it up. I like that. Shine it up.
Get yourself a strappy show suit. I'll put the link in the notes.
What else you got for us, Daddy?
We got prayer time, honey.
Ooh, Reverend Silky Nutmeg and I.
Yes, we're just not going to send our children out without having prayer. It's what we do. And so I call this prayer, I have a question. When was the last time you lit a candle? When was the last time you took a bath together? When was the last time you had a weekend getaway or vacation for just the two of you? When was the last time you kissed for more than 5 seconds? When was the last time you surprised him with new underwear? When was the last time you sucked and fucked him? When was the last time you made breakfast in bed for him? When was the last time you put out the trash specifically so he wouldn't have to? When was the last time you laid on the couch together, phones in the other room, and watched a movie? When was the last time you held hands in the car? When was the last time you wrote him a love letter? When was the last time you reminisced about the day you met or fell in love? When was the last time you looked him square in the eyes and told him all the good things? When was the last time you sat with a friend and bragged about how amazing he is? When was the last time you bought him a card that was just because? When was the last time you hugged him and held on? When was the last time he hugged you and you let him hold on? When was the last time you really looked at him, his face, his calves, elbows, the small of his back, his thighs, lips, the last time you actually saw him? When was the last time you sat with him as he cried? When was the last time you promised him you'd never leave? When was the last time you shared your dreams with him? The last time you asked him about his dreams? The time he spoke about something passionately and you really listened and asked questions? When was the last time you were vulnerable? The last time you were emotionally exposed with him? When was the last time you told him how much you love him? When? When was the last time? Amen.
Amen.
Ooh, that just about made me teary at the end. Because it's not easy. What we're doing is not easy, but we have to take moments, Matt. We have to stop and assess and be honest with ourselves outside of shame of some of the things that we're doing wrong. And if you're sitting here listening today and you realize that you've fallen behind in some of this stuff, don't beat yourself up. Be gentle with yourself. That's the only way. And get it back on track. Do what you can. Say, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's not too late.
No. And a real I'm sorry is I'm going to move forward differently. I'm going to try to move forward differently.
And if you don't have the ability to say those things, you have healing work to do before you can get there, and go after that. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
Oh, love it. All right. Well, I hope the children got something from that. I certainly did.
Me too.
And until next time, live in rivers of self-love.
Living.
1, 2, 3, 4. That's it for us today. For more bitchy wisdom, follow How to Find and Keep a Gay Man on Instagram and TikTok at, you guessed it, How to Find and Keep a Gay Man. And until we meet again, get a therapist, don't be an asshole, protect yourself, call your mom, and remember that you deserve a meaningful love. Bye.